Hey there, thanks for joining me today. I got a great new guest on here today. He's actually not so new. His name is John McCutcheon. This might be his fourth, maybe fifth time appearing on here. He was my very first guest on this podcast 5 years ago. So let's connect up with John here. He has a great new project out. Every time he joins me, there's always something new to say, and he's always got a project out there. He is a serious music talent and a writer. Gosh, his catalog is vast. I don't know, like 50 albums or so. So let's admit John in here right now into the old Zoom. How are you doing, John? How are you doing this morning?
I am doing all right. How are you?
Awesome. I'm
Uh,
hanging in there. Here, is this like the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth time you've been on my little podcast here? It's been going on for about 5 years now.
well, I get the perfect attendance award, I guess.
Get the Five Timers Club Award. That's
A jacket.
those Hugh Hefner jackets. I gotta dig into his
Oh,
wardrobe, maybe.
well, thanks for your interest in this project.
Yeah.
It was a complicated labor of love.
Yeah. You seem to be doing that. That's been a role now for a while now. You honored Pete Seeger, and when it hit the century mark on certain things,
Yeah.
you were really interested in doing a project on it. So this is really cool. This is way different. It seems a little more going back to the basics as to what you were doing way back in 1970. Now that we hit the 100-year mark for the Mountain City Convention, so that's really interesting, and just basically starting with Mountain City and its origins and how you stumbled on that and how you put this whole project together.
Well, yeah, there's two starting points here. Let's start with mine. I was 18 years old. I was a freshman in college, and I was just starting to play the banjo, which was a really lonely venture in northern Minnesota where I went to college. But luckily, I had a friend in the acquisitions department of the library, and I started, you know, forwarding him things that I thought a college library ought to get, and they were mostly from the Folkways catalog. And two of those particular albums, one was called Mountain Music of Kentucky, which featured a banjo player and singer named Roscoe Holcomb quite prominently. And I heard him, they got these albums anyway. I checked them out. Mountain Music of Kentucky. Here's Roscoe Holcomb, the most unearthly singer and banjo player I had ever heard. And I said, I got to meet this guy, because Folkways used to have extensive notes, little booklets inside their albums, and it had maps to these people's houses.
Wow.
It was
Imagine that.
it was like, well, okay, here I am in northern Minnesota, the only banjo player anybody knows. I'm going to convince my advisor to let me take a 3-month independent study to hitchhike around Appalachia and meet banjo players. The second album was called Old Time Music at Clarence Ashley's, which was recorded in Mountain City, Tennessee, by a folklorist who worked with the Smithsonian named Ralph Rinsler. And it was entirely different because it was a party. It was a bunch of people playing music together. And when you're the only banjo player in northern Minnesota, you are not hanging out with fiddle players because you don't know any fiddle players. You don't know people who played this kind of music. And I thought, well, this is an entirely different setup for this music than I had imagined. So it was with those two, I don't even know if this is a proper word, impetuses, impeti.
Empathy time, maybe. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Somebody call in and give us correct one. I stuck up my thumb after the day after my 20th birthday and headed south. And when I crossed the Mason-Dixon line, I never once ever thought I would cross it back the other way. I just fell in love
Yeah.
with
Something like that.
the music, the people, the land, all the cool stuff that was percolating and up in all these little communities I was visiting, and of course, the food. So that's my beginning. I heard about Mountain City, Tennessee when I was 18 years old. I kind of tucked it away. I went to Roscoe Holcomb's house in Daisy, Kentucky, far southeastern Kentucky, and from there started meeting people hither and yon, and kind of forgot about Mountain City.
Yeah.
Let's go back even further. 1923, here in Atlanta, the OK, it is spelled OKEH, recording company recorded Fiddlin' John Carson.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
one of the first country fiddlers, and he was well known in Atlanta, to be recorded. And boom, he sells 1,000,078s.
Yeah.
Complete,
78s, remember those things?
yeah.
Revolutions per minute. It's like, whoa.
They were all
Yeah.
about eighths of an inch thick, and they would break if you looked at them. One song per side, and one song was Old Hen Cackles and the Rooster's Gonna Crow, and the other side was Little Log Cabin in the Lane. Sells 1,000,000 copies. Caruso is the only other person who had done that in 1923. And the nascent recording industry's little head explodes, and the music business back then is just as creative as it is now. And they said, let's record a lot more stuff like that. So by 1925, fiddle music was dominating the just blossoming record industry, and radio had hopped on board.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in 1925, they have this fiddling convention, and having a fiddle contest was not unusual. But what was unique about this was the first package show in country music. Now, those are your listeners who watched the Johnny Cash film Walk the Line will recall that early in Johnny Cash's career, he wasn't playing solo. He and his little trio were playing with the Carter family and Jerry Lee Lewis and Roy Orbison in a show. It was a package show. And so Mountain City 1925 brought together 4 of the most popular fiddle stars who were known only by their recordings and by them being on the radio. There was Carson. There was the Fiddle and Powers family from Dungannon, Virginia, where I lived for many years, and I knew the surviving members anyway. And Uncle Am Stewart, who learned to play by listening to Civil War veterans and spending time in black work camps for the railroad. And the Hillbillies, who started off in Galax, Virginia, and by 1925 were living in Washington, D.C., and were popular on WRC up there. And lots of other people came. Clarence Ashley, who lived in Mountain City, was there with G.B. Grayson from the local place called Laurel Bloomery, and one of the most influential fiddle players of the 1930s. And Fiddle and Dudley Vance, and all kinds of people whose names mean absolutely nothing to you.
It's a lot to you, though. And you were very close. You got to know Ada Powers, who's part
Yeah,
of that. Yeah.
Terry and Ada Powers kind of revived the Fiddle and Powers band. And I visited with them when I lived in Dungannon, and they were fabulous musicians.
Oh,
Great kind of ragtime guitar piece from them. And it was tremendously successful. It really was the high point of fiddle music as a thing in country music, because 2 years later, the famous Bristol sessions, often credited as the Big Bang of country music, where the Victor Recording Company discovered the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers on the same weekend. You know, if I was Ralph Peer, the guy who was the talent director for Victor, I would have said, okay, I'm done.
so this is the Big Bang of country music, this 1927.
Also the shift to vocal music,
Yeah.
because it was different, and the recording companies could control the songs. They could make money from these copyrighted songs. And that has continued to this day. But that was a big shift, and really relatively little fiddle music was recorded after 1927. So anyway, there's a very famous photograph which everybody who plays fiddle and banjo music knows about, and I finally got to Mountain City. My wife, Carmen Agrediti, was in Mountain City in 2016, and they were trying to figure out, what are we going to do to sort of bring this, to have a central place where this community can come together. And they thought, and my wife was visiting there as a guest storyteller, children's author. And she was having lunch with these people, and she said, well, you should have an arts center. I said, well, that's too big a thing. And she said, I will come back and I will do a fundraising concert for free to help put in the seed for this arts center. And and by the way, I've got a husband who plays music. Well, that I could convince to come and join me. And after 5 years, I finally got to Mountain City, Tennessee.
Yeah. You're at. You're in.
Well, I knew I was in when I came into town, and a local artist named Christy Dunn, who was the granddaughter of the fiddle player on the album Old Time Music at Clarence Ashley's, had begun a project of painting murals on the side of all kinds of buildings, the supermarket, the hardware store, and the building that they decided was going to be the art center, of some of their local traditional musicians, like Fred Price, her grandfather, like Clarence Ashley. And there on the side of this building was an enormous mural of this famous 1925 fiddle contest. And those of us in the music world who are nerdy enough to know what these guys actually looked like 100 years ago, look at this photograph turned into a mural here. But we all know the photograph. And we say either this is photoshopped or this was like the Woodstock of early country music, because everybody who was prominent at that time seemed to be there. And I played that benefit concert, and then I was invited back the next year to do a solo concert. And a few years later, I was invited back, and then again. And I really got to know and love the little town. And as 2025 approached, I went, aha, I know what we could do. We should do an album commemorating the 100th anniversary of this very seminal event, and it can be a fundraiser for the Arts Center. And because, as you said, I've done all these, I did Woody Guthrie, Joe Hill, Pete Seeger, I said, I know how to do this. And so I contacted a bunch of my friends, and it was a really easy ask. Everybody knew the photograph. Everybody knew about Mountain City. Everybody thought raising money for their local arts center that was really a focal point of this town and was doing great. I mean, how many small rural towns around Appalachia are battling out-migration, opioid stuff,
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. Throughout the whole region.
kids going away and never wanting to come back. They started a junior Appalachian musicians program where, little kids are learning how to play fiddles and banjos. So it's more than just playing music. It's sort of saying, this is who I am. This is where I'm from. And all that kind of stuff, despite the complications of history, I'm sure will deserve support. And it was support right now, not 100 years ago. And the music that we were creating, I specifically said to all the musicians, and we're talking, we got some heavyweights on here. We got Molly Tuttle, who's exploding right now, great guitar player. Old Crow Medicine Show and Tim O'Brien and Bruce Mulsky and Becky Buller. It's like a who's who of old time and bluegrass music. Stuart Duncan, maybe absolutely the most on-call fiddle player in Nashville. And more. There are almost equal numbers of men and women. There are black and white musicians. And this isn't any kind of a DEI project. It's just the way the community looks now.
Yeah, it's progressed so much since 100 years ago, obviously. And so now you have a more balanced representation on here. So how did the recording process come together, getting all these people on one album?
It was a little bit of a Frankenstein jigsaw puzzle, but I had done this before.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have pulled it off 20 years ago,
Right.
but I had Old Crow Medicine Show, especially their fiddle player and leader Ketch Secor, who had actually lived in Mountain City for a while, many years ago, was one of the first people to jump on the project, and they were really essential. Ketch roped in Molly Tuttle. They offered their recording studio,
Mm.
and probably half the stuff that's on the album was recorded in that studio. So that was really critical. And it was fun, we decided to make it as organic as possible, and people just sat in a circle and played. Imagine that in this world of tracking where the bass player plays and then the guitar player plays, and nobody's playing together.
Yeah.
And I think it was also a remnant of post-pandemic
Right.
release.
Just wanting to be together. Yeah. Right.
Because as you know, I recorded 3 albums during the pandemic
Right.
right in this room, and would send stuff off and have all my friends play on it, and it was a weird way to do it. So to get people sitting in a circle, and believe it or not, podcast listeners,
Oh, yeah.
that's not the way most recordings are done today. Everybody is separated. You put on things one at a time. You stack things, overdub. This was such a joy to do. And for the rest of it, it was, just herding cats. You know, Everybody's going into their own studios or the ones they use when we're in somebody else's studio, and wedging it in between touring. And it. To be honest with you, Robert, this came out when I finally put it all together. It was a lot more fun and way better than I ever thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It was, and the people in Mountain City, I was just there this weekend for their annual festival, and they are over the moon. They can't believe that all these people came together.
Yeah. And Mountain City from us is what we're in the Atlanta metro area, so it's about what 5.5 hours.
Hour drive. It's the far northeastern corner of Tennessee. It's
Yeah.
almost in North Carolina. It's almost in Virginia. That's how skinny it is up there. It's a beautiful little place, and every time I go there, I am just astonished at what a lovely drive it is, which
Hmm.
the fact that I'm sitting on my ass for 5.5 hours.
Yeah, that's the hard part is having to do that drive in there. But yeah, once you're there and you're in those hills, it's just gorgeous.
Just gorgeous, yeah. And the people are the best. And in fact, I sent my wife home a photograph. I said, I must be accepted as a local now because number one, I sat for 2 hours and got to play banjo in a fiddle jam
Yeah.
one on Friday night, which I never get to do. Number one, I'm usually playing the fiddle. And number two, I'm so busy now. I don't get to do these things that are just so organic and foundational to my love of this music. But Kenny Price, who is the son of the fiddle player on old time music at Clarence Ashley's, presented me with a little bag of about a half dozen rattlesnake rattles. Because, those of us who play this are a little, we're into ancestor worship, and it's the South, and you're supposed to put a rattlesnake rattle in your fiddle. And I had a new fiddle without a rattle, so I felt like it was kind of baptized in
Nice.
and they took me to the place where old time music at Clarence Ashley's was recorded.
Mm.
That was featured in the photograph on the front of the album, and I sat on that porch and played a tune I'd learned from Clarence Ashley, and just had a very kind of emotional, full circle experience, saying, "Oh my goodness, this is how it started, where it
Yeah.
brought me, and I'm somehow a part of this story now. What a humbling honor.
Yeah. Now, how did everybody pick the songs that they wanted to do in this project? You have House Carpenter, Jake Blount. So
Oh, what a great version of that it is.
yeah,
I I did some research trying to find out what pieces people played in the original convention, and people weren't really, you found out what tunes won the contests, but then I went to the recorded history and I just said, here are the different musicians and here are songs that I know that they play, that they were quite well known for playing. But each of you, if you want, go to YouTube and you can dive down a huge rabbit hole. And that's what some of them did. And I just said, first come, first served, nobody's, because I was going to do Oh Molly Hare, and I was going to do I've Always Been a Rambler, and I was going to do some other things that people did. But, it wasn't my call. And, I was the producer and I was trying to be as much in the background as I but people just chose the songs and luckily they were pretty well divided. You didn't have a lot of overlap. You didn't have some original 1925 musicians that got reps and others that got none. So it was, and it was really varied. I told everybody, own these songs. We want to present what it sounds like in 2025. Do not go back and copy some ancient 78. That's not what this project is about. It's about continuity and change. This is
right.
the foundational stuff. We're still playing this kind of music today, but it doesn't sound like it did 100 years ago. It couldn't and it shouldn't.
And socially, we have advanced so much, so not so, and not a bad thing to change some certain lyrics, not to use some songs that were.
Well, I mean, an inconvenient truth about this, and something that I expect to get crap for, is that one of the sponsors of this event, one of them, was a local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan, which is probably explains why there were no female fiddlers at the 1925 gathering, even though there were female fiddlers around. There were no black fiddlers in that photograph, even though there were plenty of black fiddlers around, some of whom taught the people who were playing.
Yeah, yeah, that amazing. Yeah, it's
And this was, I'm not, I reject the notion of presentism, which is judging all of history by the evolved standards of today. So if you're going to look at, and there are some historians who will look at 1925 and the only thing they will see is the Ku Klux Klan. It's so much more complicated a story, and the fact that everybody, I mean everybody who plays old time and bluegrass music knows there is historical racism and sexism in the songs, in the lyrics, and what's happened. I mean, one fiddle player who was famous for playing Lee Highway Blues said, nah, I'm not going to play a song named after a Confederate general. Another guy was going to do "Oh Me Wise," a well-established old song. He said, I'm not going to do that because I don't think I'm just not into singing a song about another guy who gratuitously murders his girlfriend. I mean, people change the lyrics. They excise entire songs from our repertoire. Stuff has changed. And part of what I hope this project does is initiate a conversation that's never really been had among those of us who play this music and how we explain ourselves, and what has happened in our community that makes it relevant for us today. And so there is continuity. there is change, and that's really what this project is. I mean, we have nearly equal numbers of men and women. As I said, we
Yeah.
have blacks and whites playing music together, and it's a snapshot of our community today. And 10 years from now, it would sound different. 100 years from now, it's going to sound different because that's the way culture works.
Right, it keeps evolving. So how did the song Cuckoo fall to you? Was that just you saying you were going to do all these other songs, but then what you've settled on in the project is Cuckoo, which is sandwiched into there and into the
Yeah,
song list.
it was the song that first leapt out to me on Old Time Music at Clarence Ashley's. I was learning to play the banjo, and this was a banjo solo. And it was just so unusual. And you know, I was learning about this music against the backdrop of the big folk music revival of the 50s and 60s. And, the version of Cuckoo I'd heard before was like, I mean, Judy Collins or something singing, "Oh, the cuckoo, pretty bird, she sings as she flies." And it was more pensive and beautiful. I heard Clarence Ashley play this, and it was like raw. And I used to play it for my eldest son because his name was Willie, and it starts.
Wow.
So I could see Willie as he goes rolling by. So anyway, it was, and Ketch and I had been talking, and he said, I love those low tuned fretless banjos. And I thought, well, here's a little ear candy for a little Easter egg for Ketch. I'll take out this low tuned fretless banjo with gut strings and play Cuckoo. And so
Yeah.
I love the tune, and no one else called it, and I said, good.
You're it on that one too. So Molly Tuttle's amazing with her vocals, which kicks this whole thing off, and
Oh,
her
well,
interpretation. Yeah.
and she's doing this like claw hammer guitar, which is a real it's a banjo technique, very non-European, and I'd never heard anybody do it on the guitar before, and that's what she chose to do with. I mean, when I first met Molly, she was doing some of that, and I said, "That is so cool. Keep doing that
Yeah.
because it's a whole new vista for the guitar." And she is known as an incredible flat picker. I mean, she was the International Bluegrass Music Association's Guitarist of the Year several times. So for her to put down the flat pick and sort of do this really funky,
Very challenging. Yeah.
yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, so this convention was held in a structure which it almost seemed kind of flimsy in a way. There were so many people packed in
Oh,
there.
I did a concert Saturday night in that same room. It was the local high school auditorium. And it was, well, you can imagine, here are the four big stars of early country music in Carson, the Fiddling Powers family, the Hillbillies, and Uncle Am Stewart, all in one place, including a whole bunch of people that were local that they knew. And so it was packed. There were hundreds of people out in the lobby. I mean, it was a fire marshal's nightmare.
Sure.
And early reportage of it said it was so enthusiastic, and they were stomping and everything that the floor almost collapsed. And there's a balcony in that room. So yeah, it was received with great enthusiasm. And so was my concert on Saturday night, but we did not fear for the structural integrity of the auditorium.
Wasn't quite like Woodstock of
It wasn't
either,
quite like that. It didn't rain, and there wasn't mud, and
were
saving the brown acid.
they? Did you miss Woodstock? Speaking
Oh
of
God,
that.
yes. Yes, I what was I? I was 17,
Yeah.
I think, and I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and it was as far from my reality as anything could possibly be. So I'd hitchhiked a knot, but not all the way.
Oh, you started to make the trek, and there's probably a story or a song or a movie in that, trying to make it to Woodstock.
People, and there's no stage slots for you.
Too bad. Yeah, really. Couldn't have gone on early morning.
Yeah, well, yeah, after Richie
Right.
finished up with the Star Spangled Banner, which is how all festivals should begin.
Absolutely. That's true. So going back to Fiddlin' John Carson, wasn't a WSB here? This is the powerhouse radio station here in Atlanta. That must
That,
have traveled for miles outside of here.
oh, yeah, he was one of the first big stars of country music. He was certainly the first Southern fiddle player that got that kind of wide distribution. I mean, to sell a million now. I mean, granted, it's a different time now. Nobody's buying physical recordings anymore. But this was new, and 1923. It was just after World War One, and the economy was really changing in the Appalachian region and in the South. I mean, for the first time, a lot of Southern men left the region, and especially in the mountains, the first time they probably left their county to go off and serve in World War One, and they came back with a whole new world in their experience, and also in the mountains, the big extractive industries like timbering and coal had come in.
Mm.
So there were rail lines, which not only took the timber and the coal out, it brought things in. And people had the Montgomery Ward's catalog and the Sears and Roebuck catalog, and and they had currency. It had gone from primarily a bartering economy to people being paid in money. And so they had money to buy these things like recordings. So it was, yeah, John Carson was astonishing in that way. I mean, he really was probably the pioneer
Yeah.
that ultimately led to Bristol. And then from Bristol,
Yeah.
it's,
The basis for country music, which few people realize that we got these pioneers who laid the blueprint down. You talk about the blues and the Mississippi Delta. We wouldn't have the Rolling Stones today without those guys. And
well, and this was, what did they call this? They had a name for it. It might have been hillbilly music, but then there was also race music,
mm,
which was exclusive. They attempted to exclusively market it to a black audience, but if this country is known for anything, it's cross-pollination. And so you heard, I mean, I can't tell you how often I would run into, when I met Roscoe Holcomb, he had Blind Lemon Jefferson records, and he learned to do slide guitar from listening to these things. And you had black fiddle players.
yeah,
And
she didn't
that
know
was
about.
not something that they brought from Africa. It was something that happened. And really all of Southern music, with its emphasis, I mean, from a musicological standpoint, the difference between, I have first-hand experience in this when I would go up to, say, New England, and in the days when I was calling square dances, I would have to play the fiddle and call because I could not get these northern musicians to play on the backbeat, which
Oh,
was signature of Appalachian instrumental music. Da 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 da. It was all, and it's why our dancing is so light down here. It's because the emphasis is on when we pick our feet up, rather than when we put our feet down. And that was all the cross pollination of what's how the banjo came into white culture. It was an African instrument. And it was, again, that sort of mashup of black and white society that, as segregated as it was, when people heard good music, it was like, whoa, I want some.
makes yeah. I love that interpretation of Cumberland Gap. That has a long story to it too. That
Oh,
Stuart Duncan is doing on this record. It's just which if you do the deep dive on YouTube, you could
yeah.
really see that.
Oh, yeah. One of my most memorable experiences was with that tune. I was one third of a two-person square dance band. in the early 1970s. I was the fiddle player, and a guy named Ralph Ford was the banjo player, and he was from Newport, Tennessee. And not far from Newport, Tennessee was the Sunset Gap Community Center, and we played the monthly square dances there, just the two of us. And he would play a version on the banjo of Cumberland Gap in a tuning from hell, which he eventually taught me. And it was just, there was something about it that made you want to dance. Stewart picked Stewart picked Cumberland Gap because it was from Uncle Am Stewart. And he said, well, I am Stewart, so I want to play that one. And the recording starts off with a really kind of he and the guitar player playing this really kind of straight mono. We actually put a scratching 78 effect on top of it. And then it kind of morphs into 2025. So it was a fun way to start.
It's a great technique. So taking this out on the road, are you going to do any of the tracks off of here? Obviously, try to promote this as well.
Well, everybody's kind of got their own world going on in their touring. And I will be with some of them at the Walnut Valley Festival in Kansas in a few weeks. And whenever we get near one another, we are always crashing one another's gigs. We're talking to the Country Music Hall of Fame about maybe doing a special concert in commemoration of this. And a lot of the people who are on the album live in or near Nashville. And so we'll probably do something there.
Yeah, yeah. And this album is out. We can get it through folkmusic.com.
You can. You can get it. It's out in 3 different formats. You can get a digital download, and everybody who's been to my site and tried to download something digitally know that I hate MP3s. I understand why people want MP3s. It's faster. It's faster to download. It takes up less space on your device, but we all spend too much time and money and care trying to sound as great as we can, and I hate the way MP3 sounds. So we offer it. You can download an MP3 or a WAV file, which is the full spectrum audio. You can get this in a CD, or you can get it in an LP. Warning, however, you can't put as much time or music on an LP as you can a CD, so we had to leave a couple of cuts off of the LP. But we're back to the fun, big format, the big artwork and the notes and everything. So, yeah, you can get it there. And I should, reiterate, all the money from this goes to the Johnson County Arts Center in Mountain City, Tennessee. So, it's a great way to invest in a little community that's really, it's a bootstrap story. It's a great community. It helps them teach another generation how to play this music. So, as far as bang for your buck, if you're interested in return on your investment, this is about as good as you can get.
Yeah. Great collection. Long journey home, a century after the Mountain City Fiddlers Convention. It's just a great collection and very well produced. And that is true. The LPs are great. You get that the artwork and everything with the cover and notes and things like that. It's just beautiful. But yeah, can't put as much information on the vinyl.
Right. But I'm old-fashioned enough to know it sounds better.
Oh gosh, yeah. If you have the right equipment, and honestly, listening in headphones, you could really hear that the difference. It is amazing. People who really want to hear something good, go with that LP. And
there's more vinyl sold now than there ever was at any time, which is kind of astonishing. And my theory on this is that our kids' generation grew up with MP3s.
Mm-hmm.
They got used to that kind of squashed, compressed sound. That was their standard. And then maybe they go into mom or dad's collection and they're getting out CDs and then LPs. So they're not only hearing full spectrum audio, they're hearing it in analog. And I remember one of my sons saying, "Oh, That's what a piano really sounds like.
Yeah.
That's what a drum set sounds like. Oh, I want that all the time. So, you go to a Molly Tuttle concert or an Old Crow Medicine Show concert, and they, they're selling more LPs than any other format
Yeah.
by by a lot. So the kids have got it right.
Yeah, yeah, finally it's come around again. What's old is new again. It's just, but nothing's like seeing you live, which you are constantly on the road, constantly putting on these live shows. That's where you hear the real instrument and still doing the dulcimer and things like that. It's just
Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, I'm not touring as much as I used to. The pandemic cured me of that, and I'm 73 years old. I don't,
Mm.
and I got my union pension. I got Social Security. I got Medicare. Oi! So I don't have to go out as much, but I'm still writing and conjuring up all kinds of stuff. I'm sure we'll be talking in early January when the next McCutcheon Paxton album
Oh,
comes out, because that's all done now too. And then
yeah.
in 27, I'm putting out an all Carter family album in honor of the 100th anniversary of the Bristol sessions, because I lived right over the mountain from the Carter family for many, many years. Played with them, played at their home place. It's kind of in my DNA. So that's
Wow.
that's
Busy.
that's the platter of what's to come. So I can't be
Wow.
out on the road all the time. I got all these things to do.
Lots of projects. So when's the autobiography come out? You're seeing it's not complete yet, though.
Well, I am writing a book, but as I told a friend of mine who's an author, I said, if I'm going to write one book, I don't want it to be about me. So we'll keep you posted, Robert.
I can believe it. Wow, a life well lived, and it's continuing on. More to come for sure. So great speaking with you again, and best wishes on this project and the future ones.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it and look forward to talking to you again.
Take care. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.